All it took was one spray. One spray of that cursed perfume, and my life began to crumble. The smell clung to me like death, and no matter how much I scrubbed, I couldn't wash it away. But the betrayal that followed, that broke me. In the bustling city of Freetown, Kadiatu Bangura was known for her charm and warmth. Her laughter echoed through the streets of her neighborhood, and her bright smile could make even the gloomiest day seem cheerful. She worked as an accountant at a local firm, and though life was sometimes hard, Kadiatu believed in living with optimism. One evening, as she returned home from a long day at work, she noticed a small box placed carefully on the doorstep of her apartment. It wasn't unusual for people to exchange small tokens or gifts in her community, but this was unexpected. Carrying it inside, she set the box on her table and untied the neat ribbon that held it together. Inside was a perfume bottle so beautiful it took her breath away. The bottle was made of shimmering crystal glass, with a golden nozzle that sparkled in the light of her single bulb. Tucked beside the bottle was a card that read, "May the aura of this perfume bring you the attention you deserve." There was no name, no sender. A smile crept across her face as she wondered who might have sent it. Was it Musa, the client she had helped resolve a banking issue last week? Or perhaps someone who admired her from afar? Without giving it too much thought, Kadiatu sprayed the perfume lightly on her neck. The scent was heavenly, a delicate blend of jasmine and sandalwood that made her feel elegant and special. She inhaled deeply, savoring the aroma, but then something strange happened. Her nose twitched, and her eyes watered slightly. The fragrance seemed to shift, becoming faintly sharp and unsettling. She shook her head and set the bottle down on her dresser. It's probably just my imagination, she thought. With a busy day ahead, she went to bed, the scent still faintly lingering around her. Kadiatu didn't know it yet, but that spray of perfume would mark the beginning of her nightmare. The next morning, Kadiatu woke up to an unbearable stench. It was foul, like rotten fish mixed with stagnant water. Her nose wrinkled in disgust as she sat up in bed. "Did something die in here?" she murmured, glancing around her room. She checked the corners, thinking maybe a rat had snuck in and died. But as she moved closer to the bathroom, the smell became stronger, too strong. Her heart sank when she realized it wasn't the room. The smell was coming from her. Panic set in as she tore off her nightclothes and jumped into the shower. She scrubbed her skin raw, using soap, lime, and her best shea butter lotion. No matter how hard she scrubbed, the stench clung to her like a shadow. It felt like it was seeping from her pores, refusing to leave. Still, she tried to push through the day. She had a presentation at work and couldn't afford to miss it. As soon as she arrived at the office, however, the whispers began. "Do you smell that?" one colleague murmured. "It's like something died," another whispered. Her heart sank. She could see the way her co-workers avoided standing too close, how their eyes darted away when she looked at them. By mid-morning, her manager pulled her aside. "Kadiatu," he began, his expression kind but uncomfortable. "Are you feeling okay? If you're unwell, you should take some time off." Embarrassed and defeated, she grabbed her bag and left. The walk back home felt endless, her shame weighing her down with every step. That evening, Kadiatu's boyfriend, Al-Yasin, came over. They had been dating for over a year, and she hoped he could offer her some comfort. As soon as he stepped into her apartment, however, his reaction shattered her heart. "What is that smell?" he exclaimed, covering his nose with his hand. "It's me," Kadiatu whispered, tears already pooling in her eyes. "I don't know what's happening." Al-Yasin stepped back, his face twisted in disgust. "You smell like something dead. What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," she cried. "Please, Al-Yasin, I need your help." But he shook his head. "I can't stay here. Kadiatu, you need to fix this. Don't come near me until you figure it out." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving her alone in her misery. With nowhere else to turn, Kadiatu called her best friend Aisatu. They had been inseparable since secondary school, and if anyone could help her, it was Aisatu. Aisatu arrived quickly, concern written all over her face. She hugged Kadiatu tightly, though she winced slightly as the smell hit her. "What happened?" Aisatu asked gently. Kadiatu pointed to the perfume bottle on her dresser. "It started after I sprayed that. I think it's cursed." Aisatu walked over, picked up the bottle, and examined it closely. Without hesitation, she smashed it against the floor, the glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. "There," she said firmly. "Whatever was in that bottle is gone now." But the stench remained. It clung to Kadiatu like a second skin, wrapping around her like an invisible shroud. "What if it's not just the perfume?" Kadiatu whispered. "What if it's me?" Aisatu hugged her again. "Don't say that. We'll figure this out together, okay? You're not alone." That night, Aisatu stayed with Kadiatu to keep her company. For the first time in days, Kadiatu felt a faint glimmer of hope. But in the middle of the night, she woke to the sound of Aisatu whispering on the phone. "I'm so happy it worked," Aisatu said, her voice low but clear. Kadiatu froze. Her heart raced as she lay there, pretending to sleep. What had Aisatu meant by that? Who was she talking to? The next morning Aisatu left early, claiming she had urgent errands to run. But Kadiatu couldn't shake the growing suspicion in her chest. Later that day there was a knock at the door. Kadiatu opened it to find Musa, an old friend she hadn't seen in years. He was someone she had always trusted, someone who had always been kind to her. "Kadiatu," Musa began, stepping into the room. But as the stench hit him, he covered his nose. "What happened? What's that smell?" Through her tears, Kadiatu told him everything. The perfume, the smell, Yasin's abandonment, and her growing doubts about Aisatu. Musa frowned. "Kadiatu, you can't jump to conclusions. Aisatu has always been there for you. You need to be sure before accusing her of anything." His words calmed her slightly, but the doubt lingered. Musa stayed by Kadiatu's side, trying to help her find answers. He eventually reached out to a well-known prophet in Kisii, who agreed to visit Kadiatu's home. The moment the prophet stepped inside, his expression darkened. "You are cursed," he said. "This curse was placed on you by someone close to you. Someone who envies you and wants to see you broken." Kadiatu's voice trembled as she asked, "Is it Aisatu?" The prophet nodded solemnly. Kadiatu began to heal after the prophet's intervention. The stench faded, and she slowly started to regain her strength. Musa stayed by her side, offering unwavering support. But one evening, while at Musa's house, she noticed a crumpled receipt under his table. When she picked it up, her blood ran cold. It was for the perfume, the same one that had ruined her life. "Musa," she whispered, her hands trembling. "You bought the perfume." Musa froze. "Kadiatu, I can explain." His explanation was worse than she could have imagined. He had loved her for years but felt invisible. Desperate, he had sought the prophet's help to make her vulnerable, hoping she would finally turn to him. "You destroyed me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You let me hate Aisatu for something you did." Kadiatu cut ties with Musa that night. She called Aisatu the next day, sobbing as she apologized for doubting her. Aisatu forgave her without hesitation, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You were hurting," Aisatu said. "I understand." Together, they began to rebuild their friendship. Kadiatu found a new job, reconnected with old friends, and slowly pieced her life back together. Not all gifts are given with good intentions. Not everyone who claims to love you truly does. As for Kadiatu, she never accepted mysterious gifts again.